We are going to be selling our property and potentially living on a boat.
But my plans have changed. Looked into house building, I've got manuals on building your own cabin, and so our retirement plans are changing all the time.
We are absolutely considering a motorhome.
We're really not entirely sure exactly what we want. How on earth did we end up in this situation? We've gone from boat to caravan to static caravan to France and then now back to boat again. And every option seemed like the right answer until it wasn't. So when it comes down to it, the bottom line is, where do we actually live that's cheap enough, where we can stay free enough and never have to work again? A lot of the recent videos have been about moving to France, and on paper it looked really good. The figures sort of added up. We were able to get a nice cheap property, beautiful countryside, but as you start getting into the details of the visas, the healthcare, the buying the property, potentially doing up a place, filling it with your own stuff, carpets, decorating, washing machines, dishwashers, all of that, the costs just mount up. Then we thought, oh, we'll live in a caravan or a motorhome and we'll be nomadic for the rest of our lives. And the more we dwelled on it, it just didn't really seem like that's what we wanted. The original boat idea came around just because it's what we knew. We love the sea, we love the water. We both grew up in the southeast and we moved up to London where we eventually had children, and then we moved back down to the coast because the sea just drew us back. And I think we'd lost sight of that. We realise now that what we've been longing for all along has been staring at us in the face. Originally we wrote off the idea because we were misguided or lacked the true information that we needed about moorings and boat life. Although we'd owned a boat before, which wasn't big enough to live on, but we'd had the trials and tribulations of owning that boat, and we thought that was going to extend to the bigger boat and make it impossible to make it work. So where has all of this left us? Well, it's actually left us in the same position that we were before I even started this channel. We still have a house, I've still got a pension that I can't touch, and at the end of the day everything could still be on the table, but now it's not. So can we really live on a boat? Is it practical? Things we need to consider: mooring costs, getting the boat in and out of the water when we want to anti-foul it, if we need to anti-foul it. I'll come back to that. Also, staying warm. How are we going to manage that? All of these things we really did know the answer to, because being a member of a boat club, we've got access to a hell of a lot of information. But we kind of ignored it because we were looking elsewhere for the freedom, the lifestyle that we wanted to have in our early retirement. The ultimate goal being stop working and live a bit of life, have a bit of an adventure. What more adventure can we have than living on a boat? We'll still have a caravan, we'll have a tow vehicle, we'll be able to tour around the country, tour around Europe. So our plans are all now coming together. As far as the boat's concerned, getting it in and out of the water, we've got that covered. We've got a trailer at the mooring where we can get it out of the water, potentially free of charge, and back into the water free of charge. The mooring fees are a lot lower than they would be if we went to a major marina. So we can factor all of that into our budget. Staying warm in the cold weather. The boats we're looking at are going to have a diesel heater, and they'll have air blowers going through the cabins. We'll also be able to have electric like oil-filled radiators and things around. Some of the boats we've been looking at have even the cruisers have got a wood burner. But I don't really fancy that on a glass fibre boat. I'm sure it'll be fine, but it just doesn't look right. So our home base will be on a river. It'll be, as I said before, brackish water, and it'll be a tidal river. So anti-foul won't be a major issue at all. Just keep things up to date every now and again. Next comes the search. Really, the search for the boat. We've already got some in mind, and we've been speaking to some of our boat club members who know a lot more about boats than we do, so we can also get an idea of what kind of offers to put in on the boats that we're after. So we'll have that base on the river, and then we can use the caravan and the tow car to go around Europe and go around the country. Loads of areas in the UK that I really want to visit. And this ticks all the boxes. It ticks, even when we were looking at a property in France, we were looking for somewhere near the sea so that I could go sailing. We were looking somewhere near a lake, near a river. Always wanted to be near water, and it's like, this is staring us right in the face. We're literally right next door to a lovely river and right on the sea, right on the coast. So it just makes sense. That way we can be all around our family. All of the things that we get on with in our daily lives, apart from work, we can still do. It's just the style of living will change, that's all. So the hard bit coming up is going to be selling the house. Hopefully we'll be able to sell it quick enough. That's the thing. All the while that the house is not sold, we're going to have large mortgage payments of £700 odd a month going out. We need to stop that as soon as possible. So, if need be, if the market is flat, we will just drop the price and keep dropping the price until we realise a decent offer, and hopefully still clear the 100,000 that we need, ideally, to make all of this work. So have you ever wondered, what it's like to make a big jump and completely overhaul and change your life, then, stick with us, because this is where you're going to see it happen. We'll be filming every step of the way. We'll be filming the viewings of the boats, fitting it out, making sure all the heating all works right, and working out how to make that space as big as possible. So we know for now that our numbers add up. And again, our plans may change in the future. Once my wife receives her state pension, which will be, by the time we get it, will probably be £1,000 a month. It's nearly £1,000 a month now, I think, if it's not already. That coupled with our investment income and her existing private pension income of £400 a month. Once that all starts coming in, if we then decide, and that'll be 7 years' time, which will fly by, I know it will. If that comes around and then we decide, well, actually we want to get rid of the boat and then maybe rent a property in the UK, we'll be able to afford to do so, because even if we live for another 30 years, we'll still be able to afford to do that, because we'll have the majority of our investments still available. So this gives us the best of both worlds, and also it means that with a boat, I was saying the budget for the boat was going to be up to like 40,000. No way. When we've been looking at the boats, the type of boats that we want, we can probably get something for 20,000, if not less than that. I sold my bayliner just recently at a massive loss. Somebody got an absolute bargain. It was a fully working, brand new engine in the boat. The boat was lovely, no leaks, no damp, nothing. It was absolutely fantastic. But that was just kind of the market price, really. When you look around, we're confident that we can get, the kind of boat that we want to live on for, around 20 grand or under. In which case, that leaves loads more money that we can either invest for income, but we can also help our kids out. We can give our kids money. We can help. My daughter's looking at possibly getting on the housing ladder. We can help with that as well. Rather than putting all of our money into paying off the house or paying off the mortgage so we've got the house, or maybe even downsizing. I saw a property recently for 170,000, literally just up the road from us, and it was a little bit out in the country. Really nice place, a little bit outdated, needs updating. But I thought, well, if we sold our property, maybe I could use 50 grand from my pension, and that's what we get for the house, and we could buy that outright. But then I'd have a reduced pension, I'd have all the money tied up in the house, and again, no way to really help the kids out. I say kids, they're adults. So, they'd have to wait till my wife and I croak it, and then they realise the property, sell the property, and then realise the money that way. This way we can help them at the best time of their lives, when they really want to get started on the property ladder, or moving on in life, and we'd still have savings later on in life as well, potentially, especially when my pension kicks in 12 years time. So it just all makes sense to do it this way round. It really does. I can't wait to wake up in the morning, neither of us can, to feeding the fish or feeding the ducks on the river in the morning, like we've seen other people do. Masses of wildlife, which we absolutely adore, down by the river. I remember staying overnight on my bayliner, and you hear the cuckoo in the afternoon and then the owls at night. That's just priceless. I don't get that in my house, but we'll have that every night, on the boat, which will be wonderful. So it's all come full circle, really. When I started out the channel, I named it Casting Off because it was to do with casting off, from the mooring, and then it changed to moving to France and everything else, but we've come full circle. This is what we're sticking with. We've got an agreement for the mooring. That's all sorted. In the bag, done. We've got boats we're already looking at. There's plenty of boats available. We're going to try and source one locally, which will be brilliant, because we can literally then just run it down the river rather than running it around the coast. But if we need to run it around the coast or get it trailered in, then we'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to afford to do that as well, because we're not spending very much on a boat. As far as the mooring's concerned as well, we were worried, you have to get a residential mooring, otherwise they'll come after you for the council tax and all this sort of stuff. As long as you've got an address in the UK, which we will have, we've got a family address that we can use as a base, if you like. We won't have to pay the council tax, and we can go on a leisure mooring. Now, we even spoke to a guy who owns the marina. We went to visit a marina the other day, and the guy came out because I was doing some filming, and he was asking me what I was doing, and we were like, oh yeah, do you live here and everything else? He goes, yeah, I own this whole marina. It turns out that there's loads of people that live on leisure moorings. In fact, the majority, I think, live on leisure moorings, don't pay any council tax. They have an address that they use, whether it's through a company they pay or whether they have a family address that they use. And the majority of people live on leisure moorings, which is a lot cheaper than a residential mooring. So yeah, it's all going to work out really well. And now I wish I hadn't sold my bayliner, because then I could go down there and film on there and get even more excited. But still, hey ho. And then the other thing I'm also looking at is getting a sailboat, and that won't cost me more than £1,000, really, certainly no more than £2,000. The type of boat I want, can store that locally, so I'll still be able to get my sailing fix in as well, and get really clued up on sailing, which is what I've always wanted to do, even before I bought my bayliner. So no doubt we'll have some sailing videos too. So yeah, it's going to be a big learning curve still, even though we've been used to the boats, we've been used to being near rivers and the sea and everything else. You've got to have a healthy respect for water, but it will be a learning curve, but that's fine. We're not old, we're not too old yet. We had to go through this process to really refine what we we actually really want to do and what we want out of life. If you're watching and you've ever tried to make a massive change in your life or a massive decision in your life, would you not want to explore, or have you not explored all of the options and ended up gone full circle? That's what we've done. But we had to go through that process, and it doesn't matter. We haven't lost any time. We haven't actioned anything. We haven't lost any money or anything like that at all. We've just gone full circle, ended up where we should have been all along. So later in the week I'm going to get down to some more moorings just to double check some other areas, have a look at some boats. I won't be actually going in to view some boats. I think that's probably unfair until we're able to really be in a position to buy. But certainly I'm going to get up close and personal with some boats that I've got my eye on. In fact, there's one I'm going to be checking out in a few days' time. So thanks to everyone who subscribed recently. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for your super thanks, and of course the support that we get from the channel members, including new member James Carson. Thank you and welcome to the channel. See you on the next update.